Hello!
Hello AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Wyrdhollow.
And in this video we're looking at the very magic based SEISMIC Shock Rivals deck.
SEISMIC Shock, another deck that doesn't have a plot card.
There is no plot card, so neither of the decks in this new starter set or core set have plot cards. And interestingly, that's now the last 3 new Rivals decks don't have plot cards.
It's almost like they've just given up with that idea. No, we don't like that. It screws up Championship too much. Let's get rid of them all.
Well, it does give a shot in the arm to Championship players.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing.
No, I think it's a good thing. I think I'd like to say I think it sounds like GW listening, but I think probably they planned it all along. Because if they work so far ahead, I don't think they could have been listening. But I think it is really good. I really like that. And the design space opened up, as we've discussed in our other videos. Do check out our other videos. But the design space they've opened up is really exciting. And I have to say, although this is very magic based, I'm going to start with the objectives. 9 of the 12 objectives of this deck are objective token based. So we do run for full fail a little bit of the objective means 2 different things in this game, but there are 9 cards that you score glory for if you're standing on objectives in a number of different ways. So, for example, we've got one which if you have 1 or more friendly wizards each hold an objective in enemy territory, and 1 or more of those wizards has a wizard level of 2 or greater. So some of these are pretty tricky to score, I have to say.
Especially when a lot of warbands only have 1 caster.
Yeah. the Rivals deck is I don't think many people will be playing this. I mean, you might play it with the Stormcast ones where all of them are.
I think there's only 3 warbands that have 2 casters, aren't there? Because there's the Exiled Dead.
Yeah.
You've got the 2 Stormcast warbands.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
I can't think of another warband that has another level, even a level 1 wizard in it. I can't. None that obviously come to mind.
No, Kagras has only got 1, hasn't it?
Yeah. Most of them only have 1.
Yeah, so then you've got like powering up. Score this after a single friendly wizard is activated for a second or subsequent time in this phase, and that wizard was on the same objective in enemy territory on 2 or more of the times they were activated. I was trying desperately to score that in one of our games. It's really quite hard to score.
It can be if you haven't got other actions, or your opponent is all over you.
Yeah, or if you're not on it.
If you're not at the start of the round, then you're hopeless.
So but it is worth 2 glory. So the deck has 17 glory in it, which has 3 of the decks of the new ones all have 17 glory. So I'll perhaps ought to go through and check whether all the others have.
The Toxic Terrors has 16 to start with, but it does have a few cards, which if you do this, then you'll get extra glory for it. So it's around 16 to 18 as well.
Interesting. So then there's, I wasn't going to go all through these, but I kind of want to give you a different flavour of what the things do. Sorcerer's Treasure Hunter. 1 or more friendly wizards are each holding an objective, and 1 or more of those wizards each have 3 or more upgrades. 2 glory again.
It's 2 glory,
but it's
effectively, I can't remember what the name of the card was. It came around Beastgrave, where it's just have 3 upgrades on a fighter.
It's like Loaded with Plunder, which I know isn't. That's the Goblin specific one.
But that's 2 glory.
That's 2
and you
glory,
don't have to be standing on an objective. It doesn't have to be a caster either, which would be tricky for them if they don't have a caster.
Again, perfect for the Stormcast warbands, but perhaps not so good for anybody else.
Yeah.
Wormspat.
Wormspat maybe, because Fecula's not too weak.
No. Touching the Realm. You've got to hold 2 or more objectives, and 1 or more of them are wizards.
I mean, that might not be too hard if the objectives could be anywhere. The wizard could be hiding in your half, but a lot of the others are going to make you want to get your wizard up across the field. Shape
the Realm, 3 glory. Your warband holds 3 or more objectives, and 1 of them is a wizard.
I mean,
so it's like supremacy. It's like hard supremacy.
It's like, slightly harder supremacy. And if you're someone like the Wormspat, where you've only got 3 fighters...
I mean, if you are playing a championship and you're taking the Essentials deck, you just would never take this because you just take supremacy.
Yeah, well, you take that and you take supremacy and you take the Sacred Trilo with the Wormspat and you score 9 glory at the end of the first round. And then you wake up and realise it was all a dream.
Yeah. Places of power. Each surviving friendly fighter is in a hazard hex or on an objective. And there are 2 or more surviving friendly fighters. That one's a little bit easier to score because there's no wizards mentioned.
And it can be a hazard hex.
It can be a hazard hex, yeah. The hazard hex doesn't have to be a hex. It can be just one printed on the board.
Yeah.
So that is much easier. Exploit the ley lines. A friendly wizard casts their 3rd or subsequent spell in the same phase, and it has to be successfully cast, which is pretty tricky, and they have to be standing on a hazard hex or an objective. So, hard to score. Claim the prize. Your warband holds each objective in 1 or more territories, including no one's territory, and your warband holds 2 or more objectives in 1 or more of those territories. It's 3 glory, but again, it's quite tricky to score.
Yeah, it's all about holding those objectives and being in different territories as well. It's just tricky. It's just a lot of tricky.
Yeah, and then finally, there's a surge one actually. Spark of Creation. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's spell attack action that took the target out of action. So again, that's tricky because they don't do
There's
a lot
not
of
many
damage.
2-damage magic attacks.
And the caster and or an enemy fighter were in a hazard hex and or on a feature token.
I mean, people tend to be standing more on hazard or feature tokens these days.
Yeah.
So that part's maybe not quite so hard, or you can set it up so that you charge onto one. But it's getting that successful attack to kill someone with a spell attack, which is probably mostly just doing 1 damage.
It's quite unreliable, and saying you don't do a lot of damage. There are some ping damage things to help you, but you can imagine setting up all the ping damage and then missing the spell attack action.
You get a little bit sweary.
Yeah. I might as well go through the last 3 cards because they're sort of vaguely interesting. You've got Unfortunate Focus. Score this immediately after a third or subsequent time the same enemy fighter was chosen by or declared as the target of your warband spell in this phase. Kind of depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to kill things, then that is quite hard because you've got to attack them 3 times.
Or if you don't have any actual spells and you just end up spell attacking them, that's going to be the time you kill someone.
Yes.
And you'll be like, oh, come on!
Well, I need them to survive the spell attack and then use this ploy. Burnt Out. This one, I quite like this one. Score this immediately after a power step if you have no power cards in your hand and you have not discarded any power cards in this round.
Could be.
I quite like that.
Depends on what you get, but maybe.
Yeah, it's a design space they don't look at very often.
No.
And Manipulating the Realm Sphere. Score this in end phase if your warband casts more spells than each other warband in the preceding action phase. In most games, that's going to be really easy to score.
Yes.
They won't be playing Magic.
Yeah.
Well, I say most games. In most games after the next 3 months.
yeah. Right up till now, not so much.
Yeah, because everybody's going to be playing Magic in the next few weeks. So, having a look at the power cards, then I'll try not to spend too long doing this. There's 6 spells. 4 of them are particularly interesting. I like Abasoth's Screaming Idol. Actually, I will just quickly say they've got a number of cards. They've got an Abasoth's card. They've got an Iara's card. They've got a Quintox card. Who all have been associated with Magic all the way through.
From Nightfall onwards.
Yeah, so I really like that kind of thematic continuation. That's quite a nice thing.
Just brings you back to remind you, we remember these things.
So here's Abasoth's Screaming Idols, anyway, is just a single lightning gambit spell. And if cast, you can pick 1 feature token within 3 hexes of the caster and move that feature token 1 hex. After you have done so, if a fighter is on that hex, on that feature token, deal 1 damage to that fighter. Now that's a really nice card because either you can use it as an offensive card with a bit of a drawback that you've actually put somebody on a feature token, which they might like, or you can use it as a helpful card with a drawback in the sense that it's putting you onto a card to help you score all these objective cards, but you have to damage somebody in the process. I really like that card. It's a really clever design space card. I almost think it would still be a good card if it wasn't a spell.
Yeah.
And you just did it. But it's not a very risky spell. It is a lightning, so it's not a very risky spell.
For most of your casters, they're going to be right at level 2, so a lightning on 2 dice is generally fairly safe, unless you're me.
Channel Power is an interesting card, and particularly good for Stormcast. If the caster is holding an objective, this spell is cast automatically. Whoa. Do not make a casting roll. And then it's a Gambit spell, which is 2 lightnings, but it's if cast, +1 wizard level to each surviving friendly wizard. This effect persists until your warband casts another spell or until the end of the round. Oh, actually, it's not quite so good. I hadn't read the cast another spell. So basically, the next time you cast a spell,
it's basically giving you +1 level to your next spell cast
until you've successfully cast a spell. Which is not bad.
It's still nice if you want to.
Yeah, I was thinking it was till the end of the round, which would be much better.
But I mean, you could see some people ending up as a level 4 wizard casting a spell with that. Which would be quite funky.
They blow themselves up. Although you can only ever do 1 damage, can't you? Even if you roll 4 crits.
Even if you get 4 crits,
That is the time you get 4 crits, though.
Yes, that is the one time in your life.
Stir the Nest. If cast, choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster that is on a feature token or in a hazard hex and deal 1 damage.
Nice little ping.
So a little ping. And
but you've got to rely on them being on a hex.
Yeah, but you could use Abasoth's Screaming Idol under them and then ping them.
Yeah.
That would probably ruin their day.
That would.
And I like Mind Wipe. I do like spell cards that have a bit of flexibility. And this one is quite good fun. Before a casting roll, you can pick whether you want to focus or not focus. It's lightnings. That is the casting value of this spell. If you chose lightnings, then if cast, choose 1 enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster, and they cannot hold objectives until the end of the round. Or if you chose focus, if cast, pick 1 feature token within 4 hexes of the caster, and move that feature token 1 hex. So it's kind of fun.
I quite like that, and I think a lot of people, they'll go for the safe bet most of the time, but it's just nice to have that little gamble there to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to shoot for the stars here. Or maybe you've done the other stuff to give yourself 4 casting dice and you're like, I'm going to go for that because I've still got a pretty good chance of casting this.
Absolutely. Ploy-wise, they've got Topsy-Turvy, which I've included just because it's called Topsy-Turvy.
That's a good reason.
I don't really know how good it is. It doesn't seem very good to me. Pick 1 feature token within 5 hexes of a friendly wizard that is not in the same hex as an enemy fighter and flip that feature token. There isn't much for flipping.
No.
So
I mean, it's sort of ties in a little bit with some of the other cards about having someone on a feature hex, but even then, most of the time it works.
But they if it was a feature hex and not an objective, then maybe you could flip it over.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think for the money, I'd take a different ploy card and just risk being staggered, or just do it at the end. I think.
Yeah. I guess the only time that might be useful is if you know your opponent's going for like a supremacy or something. You want to flip something just to mess with them.
Yes, but even they can still run onto it and flip it.
This is true. This is true. Unless they're staggered.
But how often is everybody staggered?
Almost never.
Arcane Reach, interesting card. +2 range to a maximum of 6.
Oh.
So the first range 2+ spell attack action made by a friendly wizard in the next activation.
There are more range 4 spellcasters.
But even so, there'd have to be range 5 for it to go up to a maximum of 6. So
I mean, maybe there might be. I guess there might be other things in people's decks that give them additions to their range, so they're just stopping you from being able to get a range 7 or 8 attack out of it.
Celestial Conduits. You can re-roll 1 magic dice in a friendly wizard's casting rolls if the cast was on a feature token.
Not bad.
Pretty good, and that persists until the end of the next activation. So that's one you want to do at the beginning of your in your opponent's power step.
Yes.
At the beginning of your opponent's power step, cast as many spells as you can, and then shoot somebody.
Yeah,
that's what you're looking for. And then finally, we've got a good friend, Celestial Surge. Celestial Surge. The next time a friendly wizard that is holding an objective attempts to cast a spell, that wizard has +1 wizard level until the casting sequence ends. The effect persists until the friendly wizard attempts to cast a spell or until the end of this power step.
So you've got that one, and you've got Channel Power.
Yeah.
They could both give you +1 level effectively. So you could get something to level 5. That's just a bit silly.
It's mad, isn't it? So the upgrades, fairly standard things for the upgrades. You've got Arcane Sensitivity, which I quite like. After this fighter casts a spell, push this fighter 1 hex. So that's an upgrade. It's a reaction.
Not too bad.
So you
bit of manoeuvrability, and because you can cast spells. In the power step, you could cast multiple spells. Exactly. You could push them multiple times.
Yeah, I quite like that one. And it goes quite nicely with temporarily aligned. After an activation, actually can't because you the same reaction step. So it doesn't
that's a good point.
Nicely,
good point.
But it's reaction after an activation step in which this fighter made a charge action, push this fighter 1 hex. Abyssal's Predatory Animus gives you an innate lightning whilst holding an objective in enemy territory.
Nice. I think we can count on one hand the number of innate dice we've got. I think Stormside had one originally,
so you could put that on. You could be doing 2 lightnings off the bat.
Oh, just auto cast most spells.
Yeah, I really like this card. I don't actually know how useful it is because it's an action. So, and I always feel like.
But it could be useful with that objective, which is doing.
Card actions are always feel like a waste of an action.
Possibly.
But I'll tell you what it is. Aspect of the Unseen Stalker. Until the end of the round, this fighter cannot be targeted by range 3+ attack actions or be dealt damage by spells. At the end of the round in which this action was made, break this card.
It's a chance to just hide, basically.
I just really like it as a theme, but I'm not sure because it's only the range 3 attack actions.
It feels like that should just be like the minute you put that upgrade on, rather than it being an action, it's just a thing. But it's like the next time you're attacked, or I don't know, something else. Maybe it's a bit too powerful that way. But yeah, it as an action, it feels a little bit.
Yeah, I think it would be too powerful to be all attack actions.
Yeah.
And finally, Sorcerer's Might, which Stormsire is rubbing his hands. Turret Stormsire is rubbing his hands for this one. This fighter's spell attack actions have Grievous 1. The card cannot affect attack actions with damage characteristic of 3 or greater. But even so,
I mean, you're not going to have that. You've got some fighters out there now that are doing 2 damage with their spell attacks in the first place. Having that Grievous is, it's
up to 3.
Yeah.
I mean, you're on Ephelim.
Yeah.
With the range 4.
She starts on 2 damage. So
a range 4 attack. So you basically, okay. So that's 3. A range 4, 3 damage attack.
And if you've got some of those other cards that start to give you extra wizard levels, you start rolling 3 dice or 4 dice on with that. That's nasty. Yeah, it is nasty.
Nasty stuff. So exciting times, I think. I mean, we've done videos for all 4 of these decks now. As we've done each video, the more exciting I've kind of seen the possibilities of combining them and doing interesting things. So
lots of things going on.
Do check out our other videos as well. for the new Wyrdhollow releases.
Yeah, I do wonder whether this deck is indicative of the fact that we're going to see more casters coming out again. Because there was after Nightfall, obviously, Magic sort of died, and you'd get a few warbands each season that had a caster in, but no one really cared that they were a caster because there weren't very many spells that mattered. This one favours the latest, Domitan favours them greatly because they've got 3 casters, and also favours Stormsire because they had 3 casters as well, although they weren't quite as good. And the only other warband that has 2 is the Exiled Dead. Might help with them as well. Obviously, any other warband without at least 1 caster, they're not going to want to take this. Even with 1 caster, the only warband I can really think of that might do really nicely with this is Zarbag's Gits. Because if you can get Zarbag onto an objective, which shouldn't be too hard, and get a lot of people around him,
you can hold enough of the other objectives to make it worthwhile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've
try it with Zarbag.
I think Zarbag could be quite nasty with this because he's also got a nice little spell attack action upgrade, and he can have some other cards which enable him to. I can't remember if they give him an innate on his roll or something like that, but. He's about the only warband.
Mushrooms where he can. It's innate one or the other, isn't it?
It might be something like that. Yeah. There's also Ilthari's Guardian. She can be quite nice as a bit of a turret attacker once you get some spell attacks on her.
Yeah, I quite like to play with Ilthari, but we're going to have to get John in.
Yes,
he's desperate to play with Ilthari.
He is. He's painted them. So yeah, we'll definitely have to do it, I think. But unless you've got a caster, obviously you're not going to care about that warband tool. And even if you have, a lot of the time you're still not going to want to touch this deck. Thedra, for example, is one I'm thinking of with the
Do you not think they'd be good at holding objectives?
Not considering they literally stub their toe and die.
Yeah,
but
the wet paper bags of the underworld.
Exactly. So it's interesting to see that they've gone for a magic heavy deck because that inherently.
Who would be good with this? Eyes of the Nine.
Eyes of the Nine, yeah. No,
I'm gonna have to try them.
I even think that like Ephelim's Pandemonium would do quite nicely. There's lots of spells in there.
They should do, really.
And Ephelim, she could be quite a nasty caster.
And you've got options to. You've got plenty of bodies to get on objectives.
And they have a lot of their own cards, which are all about standing on objectives as well. So
I feel that's coming soon to a video near us.
Yep, very near us.
Yep.
So overall, I'm interested to see the angle they're taking with this deck. There's not a lot of warbands are going to want to take it, but those that are going to want to take it could make a lot of use out of this. The Wormspat, Zarbags maybe, obviously Stormsire, maybe the Exiled Dead. I'm just really excited to see Magic come back and be quite central to some of this.
And I don't think, I'm not very good at this sort of thing, but I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it's going to make Stormsire too overpowered. I think Stormsire potentially is better than Domitan because they don't have the
change the inspiration mechanic.
So but I still don't think this will overpower them. The spells aren't huge. And there aren't too many options for like really beefing up the damage output on Stormsire to make him a turret, and there's less options for giving him too many wounds and things. Yeah,
so I'm very interested to see how this goes, and I'm liking the fact they're taking stronger choices with their deck options, not trying to make them appeal to everybody.
Yeah, can't wait to see what's going to come next. I'm always looking forward to the next thing, but that will be possibly revealed very soon at Warhammer Fest.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying this, do let us know in the comments below what things you're particularly looking forward to, any sneaky little combos you spotted there, warbands you're eager to try out with, or things that you don't like about it.
No, don't like Magic, hate it.
Nah,
it's too random.
You're obviously a corn player. As always, please do like, subscribe, ring that bell, and if you're feeling particularly generous, maybe check us out on Patreon as well.
Oh yes, it's a fantastic bargain.
So we'll see you soon in the Wyrdhollow.
Bye for now.
Bye.